This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good morning and good evening. Sindhuja, did you attend my previous
Yes,
sessions?
I did. I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was for Python, right?
Yeah, for Python. I was there for Python. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I
Nice
just
to meet
finished
you
my,
again.
yeah, same here. I just finished my semester yesterday on Wednesday, so I thought I'll join this as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping trust on us.
Yeah.
Sorry, continuing trust on us.
Yeah, maybe if you guys get some other course for data engineering, then I'll join that too.
hmm
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. Hello everyone. Welcome to the demo. Today I'm gonna talk about data engineering. By the end of this session, you'll get to understand what exactly data engineering is, and what a data engineer does in his day-to-day routine, right? What type of projects we usually deal with, what are our day-to-day responsibilities as a data engineer, and you will also get to know what are the different roles we have in data area. Okay. So once again, thank you for giving us this opportunity, guys, and welcome to the demo. So let me introduce myself. I'm Suresh. I have close to 10 years of experience into data engineering. I started my career as a Hadoop developer right from the day when I have been working on big data. I started as a Hadoop developer, then converted into a Spark developer in 2017 when this cloud came up. I started working on Azure as a data engineer. Okay, you'll get to understand all these terms, guys. Okay, so I started working as a data engineer. I have worked on Azure GCP for most of the time, but I do have hands-on with AWS data services as well. And I predominantly use Python and PySpark for developing most of the applications. So you can definitely expect this course would be driven on those lines. Okay. And talking about my training experience, I have been into training from past 6 years and trained more than 2000 plus students on different technologies, guys. I have training experience on Python. I mean, I have been training currently on Python as well, Python data engineering, and also Power BI reporting. Okay. So this is a brief introduction about me. Um, now, would like to hear from you. I'll just take a couple of minutes. So basically, I know everybody can't talk. Please use chat window, guys. So what I'm looking for is your name and then your experience. So for example, if you have 5 years experience, and then the current technology you're working on. So for example, you're working as a DevOps engineer, just put DevOps like this. Okay. So for example, if you are a fresher, just mention your name and then, mention fresher. I'm waiting for your responses. Raju, 4 years, Python developer. Hi, Raju. Hi, Bhanuchandar, fresher.
I
Sirisha,
I
non-IT,
I
2 years experience. Hi,
Hi,
Sirisha.
Suresh. Good
Hi,
morning.
Shiva. Very good morning. Rashmi, 13 years of experience as a QA analyst. Great. Jagan, 10 years ETL developer. Wow. Kumar, 11 years middleware, WebLogic, JBoss, Tomcat, Venkatesh, fresher. Ramya, fresher. Hi, everyone. Hi. Good to see we have folks coming in from ETL background too. Prudvi, fresher. Hi, Prudvi. Hi, Ajay. Hi, Sindhuja. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's get started, guys. I want this session to be as interactive as possible. Okay. Just give me a second. I suddenly forgot the application name. My bad. Uh, Paint. Do you remember, guys, where we can, write the Microsoft application?
Whiteboard.
Yes. Thanks, Induja.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. So you have opted for a data engineer course, right? So can someone tell me, why did you opted for data engineer? You know, Probably I would let any experienced folks talk about this. We have ETL
Basically,
developer. Hmm.
Suresh, basically, I want to settle in data science field.
Hmm.
So before that, going straight forward into data science field, first come to data engineer. So that
Hmm.
will give me a better understanding about data and the cloud technologies.
Hmm.
So I choose first to prefer data engineer. So moving forward, my goal is to enter into data science field. So
Got
because I
it.
have experience with Python and serverless architecture backend development.
Hmm.
So,
Good to
so
know.
that is the reason why after this course. The reason
Yep.
for Azure is I think Azure is
Hmm.
growing day by day.
Yes. Anybody else? Thanks, Raju. Rashmi, you want to say something? I
Yes,
see you unmuted. Yeah.
yes, I wanted to talk. Yes. So I am basically new to this data engineer position, or the
Hmm.
topics of whatever you say regarding the data. But we use
Hmm.
ETL applications for validations and all. I do work on that applications right now.
Hmm.
Um, right now, we are planning to move to cloud completely. So
Hmm.
this is something I got to know from my manager that I have to learn something related to the cloud technologies. So we are
Hmm.
planning for AWS Databricks. So which is
Got it.
something I'm basically looking into and
Hmm.
try to understand like what we can do and how
Hmm.
we can implement in our project.
Hmm.
But I would say I'm a fresher for this all these technologies right now.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Jagan.
Hey
And
Jagan, I'm waiting to hear from you actually.
Yeah, currently I'm working as a, Informatica developer, Informatica Power Center. It's on-prem. So
Hmm.
now I'm looking for the cloud. So when I do the research, it's a more data engineer. When I compare the data analytics, data engineer, and the data statistics, so I see that it's a data engineer more related to ETL, like that whatever extraction transformation load,
Hmm.
and that is the reason I chose this Azure Data Engineer.
Yes, you are correct. Okay, so let's get started, guys. I know you have been waiting for a while now, but just wanted to, make yourself comfortable here. Okay, let's try to make this session as interactive as possible so that you can take away something from this session, right? So before we get into the technical jargons, data engineer, data scientist, forget about all those things. We'll get started with the definition of data. So what is data? What is data?
In simple words, I can say collection of records.
Collection of records, correct? Any other definition, guys? Or any other direction you want to add to this definition?
It's information.
Information. Okay, I'll note this down. Information. I'm gonna talk about this as well. Any other definitions? Okay. So talking about data, right? The textbook definition of data is collection of raw facts. Textbook definition of data is collection of raw facts. Okay. So like one of our participants said, collection of records, which is pretty much correct. Okay. So what is this collection of raw facts? What is this data? What is this information? Okay. Uh, for me, to put it in a simple terminology, data is nothing but collection of some stats, guys. As simple as that. It could be numbers, it could be strings, it could be uh, double, it could be anything. Okay, for me, data is nothing but a collection of some numbers and strings, as simple as that. Say, for example, you talk about students. Student attributes is nothing but a data for me. Okay, like student name, student location, right? And then, student department, student marks, and, student interests. These are all data for me. Okay, now let's talk about, in real world domains. So for example, you take retail domain, which everybody are familiar with, customer data. Customer data are nothing but customer attributes, customer name, customer email, and then the password used by customer for logging in, right? And then customer addresses, customer payment methods, right? Whatnot. Okay, and then talking about the products they sell on their platform. Again, it's a product data, product attributes, product name, product category, product price, right? And then any product related attributes, guys. So for me, data is nothing but collection of all these attributes, as simple as that. Okay, data is nothing but collection of all these attributes. Okay, now talking about information and data in our day-to-day life, we use in wrong sense. Okay, so basically wherever we have to use data, the word data, we use information. So for example, do you have any information on the weather, or do you have any information on the student? Okay, so basically it's data. Okay, information is something one level above data, I would say. Okay, so information is a meaningful data, or some insights that are extracted out of data. Say, for example, I was given a student data with all their marks. Okay, um, I will not be able to understand anything at the first glance. I'll have student name, student roll number, and then student marks. I'll not be able to interpret anything, or I'll not be able to come to any conclusion. Okay, but when I say the average percentage of that class is, let's say, 75%. Okay, then I can come to a conclusion saying that, boss, if you pick any student randomly in that class, his percentage would be in and around 75. Might not be exactly 75, but plus or minus, um, some 5, 10 values, or there could be some outliers too. I'm not talking about them, but majority of the students, if you pick randomly, their percentage would be around 75. Okay, so that is what average tells you, right? Likewise, we have the other information as well. This is what we call as information. Information is nothing but extracting something useful out of your data, the insights you extract out of your data. Okay, now talking about data, right? There are three different types of data, guys. Okay, you must have heard about them. One is unstructured, and the second one is semi-structured, and the third one is structured. Any idea on this classification?
Yes, Suresh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what exactly is this classification?
Structured data comes under for video and music records.
Hmm.
Okay. And semi-structured comes under the JSON XML files.
Hmm.
And structured comes under for RDBMS like rows and columns based.
Okay, that
So
is pretty
until
much correct.
yeah.
Okay,
As a
so
structure means it has a format, it has a correct format, and we can know what this format, and we can get the insight from it directly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Unstructured means it will like there is no structure for this, and there is no schema for that.
Mhm.
Basically, for that.
Yeah, that's a very good elaboration, Raju. Thank you. Okay, so he's pretty much correct, guys. Let me give you the proper insights into this classification. Okay, so talking about unstructured, right, to keep it in a simpler terminology, the data doesn't have any structure associated to it. As simple as that. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Um, let's take a file, right? And then maybe you want to store students' data into that file, right? And when you have to store student data into that file, how do you do that? So it will be a lot of text, right? A student name Suresh with roll number XYZ have secured, X marks in subject 1, Y marks in subject 2, Z marks in subject 3, and scored a total of some ABC, and average some 70%, and passed in maybe distinction. Okay, so this is how you'll have to store data. For one student, it is fine. Let's say you have to store the same for 120 students, same for 1,000 students in a college, same for 1 lakh students affiliated under a university. Okay, so storing is still fine, but let's say maybe you want to find out how many students have secured 90 plus in mathematics. Okay, or maybe you want to find out in what subject majority of the students have failed. Okay, or maybe you want to extract maybe from past 4 years data or past 5 years data, how is the past percentage trend for physics. Okay, so you'll not be able to do it using an unstructured format. I mean, maybe you will be able to do it, but it's going to be really, really, really difficult. Okay, so any data that is stored in a file can be considered as unstructured data. When I say file, it need not be, uh, I mean, might not be always, because there are other file formats too, like JSON, CSV, XML. But most of the times, whatever the data that is stored in a text file is unstructured. Okay, when you have a lot of text in it, right? And that is one such example, files. And the second one, like one of our participant is mentioning, your audio files, your video files, and then .html files, they're all unstructured, guys. Audio files, and then video files, and .htmls. Okay, so these are all unstructured examples for unstructured. Now let's talk about structured. Okay, so we'll take the same example. We'll take the same example of uh, you know the student record. Now let's say a student with roll number, name, subject marks, likewise, right? So I don't want all of them. Maybe I'll try to identify the important attributes, okay, which is maybe roll number, which can uniquely identify this person, and then name, and then maybe subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, subject 3 marks, then we have total, and then we have percentage, okay, and then probably comments, okay, comments or final verdict or whatever it could be, right? And let's say roll number 1001, name is Suresh, subject 1 maybe 70, 75, and then 70, it would come around 72, some random thing. So this is 215, percentage is somewhere around 72, comments, let's say distinction, okay, and then let's say we have 1002 of Ramesh, then subject 1 marks, let's say we have 65, 65, and then 65, 180, 195, okay, percentage is 65, and then comments is pass, okay, and then 1003 Naresh, maybe some 15, 20, and then 18, okay, 35, 45, 53, percentage is somewhere around 18, and then fail. Okay. So let's say from that unstructured data, you try to identify the important attributes, and you create something like this. Okay. So this is what we call as structured data. This table is what we call as structured data. Okay. And the vertical ones you are seeing, right? These are what we call as columns, and the horizontal ones you are seeing here are what we call as rows. This is a table with a combination of rows and columns. Okay, each column will talk about an attribute. Roll number is an attribute, name is an attribute, S1 subject 1 marks is an attribute, subject 2 marks is an attribute, and the horizontal ones are what you call as rows, or you can also call them as record. Okay, so one record will talk about one particular student. This is since this is a student data, let's say you're talking about a product data, one particular record will talk about a product. Maybe you're talking about a sales data, okay, one particular record will talk about one transaction. Okay, so these are what we call as rows or records. Okay, here we have three students, 1001, 1002, and 1003, and we have a software called RDBMS, Relational Database Management Systems. Okay, so we have a software called RDBMS which is invented to store data in the form of rows and columns. So basically this is a software which would let you store data in the form of rows and columns. Okay, so not just that, it provides a lot of other features as well, how you can store data of dependent tables, multiple tables, creating relations in between them, and then it also provides something called as SQL, structured query language. SQL, structured query language, using which you can actually query from your tables. Okay, so you're asking RDBMS, boss, get me the student who were failed in semester 2, or maybe get me the list of students who have secured more than 75 marks in subject 2. This is what we call as SQL, guys. Okay, so using which you can actually query from your table. And again, talking about SQL, it's a different uh, topic altogether. You have multiple operations using which you can do using SQL, including creating this table, managing this table, and then querying from this table, whatnot. Okay, we'll eventually get there, but this is just an introduction. But this is what we call a structured format, where you are storing data in the form of rows and columns. I repeat, where you are storing data in the form of rows and columns in a table. You can use SQL to extract some insights out of it or to get whatever you want. Okay, and like Raju was mentioning, this is what we call a schema, the column names. Every column will have a name and also a data type. Okay, so name and data type together is what we call a schema. Okay, in some databases, this schema is referred to as database as well. Okay, we'll eventually get there. What databases we have that kind of a definition, and what databases we have a different definitions. Okay, but at this point in time, you can assume the column names, whatever you have, along with the data types, is what we call a schema. Okay, so basically for any unstructured data, you have a proper schema defined. Okay, and there are a lot of other things too. Say for example, uh, you know, this roll number is a identifier, unique identifier for every record we store in this table. Okay, maybe you don't want any duplicate entry to be made into this table. You will define this as a primary key. Okay, so likewise, you have key constraints: primary key, foreign key, unique, distinct, right? And then not null, right? So you can impose all these constraints and make sure your data is stored with all the standards, right? So RDBMS as a software have much more to offer. Okay, now this is about structured data, guys. And moving on to the next category, it's a CSV. Sorry, it's an unstructured file. So sorry, semi-structured. So we are done with structured, unstructured, and then semi-structured. So talking about semi-structured, this is neither unstructured nor structured. Okay. So semi-structured also will have some structure attached to it. Semi-structured will also have some structure attached to it, but the data is not typically stored in a table and you don't get the luxury of all the features I was talking about. Okay. So the best examples could be the data stored in your CSV file, XML file, JSON file. Okay, so these are the typical examples. Okay, so maybe I recommend you to install this software, guys, along with everything else. This is Notepad++ in Windows. I don't know what alternate you have for Notepad++ in Mac. If somebody is using Mac and somebody is using a software similar to Notepad++, please let the team know. I mean, let our folks know. Okay, but this is one of my favorite editors. This will be very helpful, guys. Okay, now talking about CSV file, right? It has a .csv extension, meaning comma separated values. I know the text is very small. Let me use Notepad for now. Okay, it stores data with the .csv extension, and this is how you'll have your data stored. Okay, so um, we'll talk about the same example: roll number, name, and then subject 1 marks, subject 2 marks, and then subject 3 marks. Then you have total, then you have percentage, and finally you have comment. Okay, now talking about this thing: roll number, name, say Suresh, 70, 75, 70, and then let's say percentage is somewhere around 72. Comment is distinction. Okay, maybe I'll add one more record: 1002 Ramesh, and then maybe 65, 65, 65, and the total, I missed total here, 215 comma, percentage is 72. So here it is 195 comma, percentage is 65, and then the comment pass. Okay, so this is how typically your data is stored in a CSV file. Okay, if you see this data still have some structure, guys. So maybe you read line by line and split every line or every record by the comma delimiter. Comma, I mean, the special character which you use to separate these values is what we call as delimiter. Okay, so in a comma separated files or CSV files, the default delimiter would be comma. The default delimiter would be comma. Okay, so all the values are separated by commas. So if you see, there is some structure attached to this. Okay, but the data is not typically stored in a table where you can have all the flexibility with structured data. Okay, and second example is JSON. JSON is a JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation. So it typically stores data in the form of a key value pair, something like this. Okay, maybe roll number, this is key, and then we have value, maybe 1001. I would read this as an integer, and then name. Okay, Suresh, and you can likewise you can define all the other attributes too. In the interest of time, I'm not doing it. Okay, so you can have multiple JSON records in the same file, or you can also have one file for each of these records. Okay, now another example is XML. XML, extensible markup language. Okay, so generally this is also used for data transfer. So you'll have schema defined in the form of a tag, roll number, something like this, roll number, and then roll number value 1001, and then the end of this tag, roll number. Okay, and then you can have name, and then name is Suresh, and then end of this tag. Okay, I have taken the simplest of the all, but you can create a complex XML structure too. So basically for semi-structured, right, these three are some examples. There are different examples for semi-structured, but you'll have some structure attached to your data. I mean, you'll still have some schema defined. Okay, but it's not as comprehensive as structured data. Okay, let me take a pause. Are we good so far?
Yes, Suresh, we are good.
Okay.
So I just have a question here,
Mhm,
Suresh. So we will widely be using the structured data only, right?
mhm.
For data engineer, or we will be using semi-structured as well.
Sorry, I missed it, Rashmi. Can you please
So
repeat?
like, okay, for pulling the data,
Mhm.
or when we write the scripts to pull the data, we will be considering the structured data, or how is that? Like, how is it related? Is it related to only structured data or semi-structured data as
Now, you are a data engineer. You should be able to handle any of these file types.
well? Okay.
Okay.
Any
So
data.
there are,
Yes, either
yes,
it's came
any
from the
data,
table or JSON file, XML, CSV, whatever kind of data it is.
anything. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thank
So
you.
now, no worries. Coming back to this, guys. Okay. Now, let's talk about now we have some understanding, if not completely, but at least we have some understanding on what exactly is data, what are the different types of data we have. Okay, so based on this, uh, we will now talk about different roles we have, and then we'll see what flows we generally get into. Okay, now talking about roles, right, we have data engineer role. Okay, and then we have data scientist, and then we have data analyst, or data analytics, or data, there are multiple names for the same. Okay, and these nomenclature is also changing day by day. Okay. Now, talking about a data engineer, right? What he typically does is ELT or ETL, ELT or ELTL. I'll try to explain what exactly these are. Okay. So it doesn't matter what you take any of this, but E stands for extract, T stands for transform, and L stands for load. Okay. So this is how typically it works on Azure platform, guys. Okay. So Azure or any cloud. Okay. I know I haven't talked about what a cloud environment is, what different types of clouds we have, to what category Azure falls into, all these things in the interest of time, but you will eventually get to understand once our session started. Okay. But now let us assume this is an Azure environment. Okay. And now, whenever we talk about any data engineering operations, right, not just data engineering, anything, we typically talk about two things: storage and then compute. Okay, storage is where exactly you store your data. Okay, and compute is what exactly you use to process data. Storage is something which you use to store data, and the compute is something which you use to process data. And you have Azure Data Services which would fall into either of these categories. Okay, so when I talk about multiple Azure Data Services, right, we'll talk about ADLS Gen 2, which is right now, and then we'll talk about different databases we have, Azure SQL, and then we will talk about Azure Synapse, Azure Databricks, then we have uh, Azure Data Factory, right? So there are a lot of things which would come into picture, but all of them would be categorized into any of this type. Either they are a storage service or a compute service. There are few services which provide both uh, to the user, but you know uh, internally it can also be categorized into what it is. Okay, but now let's talk about what exactly I'm talking about.
Suresh, can I stop you
Mhm.
here for a second and ask a
Yes,
question
please.
before we go further? Sure.
Mhm,
So we are only talking about Azure here, right? Why are we not
mhm.
talking about other cloud services like AWS or others?
Because
Just a
this is
question.
a Azure Data
I'm
Engineering course.
so data engineering doesn't like it also supports AWS also supports, right?
AWS also supports, GCP also supports.
Is it
Okay,
GDC or GCP?
GCP,
Okay,
it's a Google Cloud platform.
okay, okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you something, guys. I mean, for me, data engineering is not a cloud specific or not a technology specific. Okay,
Mm.
let me put it right up front. Okay, so data engineering is all about understanding your data problems and how can you solve it. Okay, so for me, a proper data engineer, let's say I'm taking an interview for a data engineering role, I wouldn't look at whether he's coming from an Azure background or a typical Informatica background or AWS background or GCP background. I will always ask questions in data engineering pain points. Okay, so for example, I have this scenario, how do you model the data? Or maybe let's say I have this scenario, how do you handle this? Or maybe I have this batch use case, or maybe I have this real-time streaming use case, or maybe the client requirement is this. How can you get it fulfilled? Okay, so these are the things which I want any data engineer to know. And talking about technology and the cloud, right? You know, you have alternate for everything. Let's say you talk about Synapse in Azure, you have similar alternates in GCP and AWS. For example, in AWS it is Redshift, GCP it is BigQuery, and then one of the most predominantly used tool in data engineering is Databricks. Okay, and when we talk about Databricks, Databricks is there in all the three clouds. You can take Databricks subscription either in Azure, AWS, or GCP. And then you talk about storage in ADLS. In Azure we have ADLS, then GCP you have GCS buckets, and in AWS you have S3 buckets. Okay, so likewise you have Data Factory in Azure, you have Glue, AWS Glue in AWS, and then we have Data Fusion in GCP. Okay, so for me, right, data engineering is all about understanding the data problems and then solving them. Okay, but you cannot start your journey into data engineering just by knowing data engineering problems. At least you'll have to get used to one of these clouds end to end. Okay, so our course predominantly focuses on Azure. Not predominantly, it only focuses on Azure. Okay,
Got it.
so like I said, you learn Databricks in Azure. It's the same Databricks. At the end of the day, maybe in Azure, you are reading a file from an ADLS storage. Maybe the same code you'll use, but you'll just change the file path when you run it in AWS. Instead of ADLS Gen 2 path, you'll give an S3 path. Likewise, you will give a GCS bucket path in GCP. Okay, so there are some services, I mean, there are some services uh, which is there in all the three clouds. But let's say you are using Synapse. At the end of the day, it boils down to SQL and PySpark as well. And talking about BigQuery, BigQuery is all about SQL. Redshift, I have never worked on it, but I heard it is also similar to BigQuery. Okay, so this is what it is, guys.
Aditya, I have a doubt. And is there any specific reason, you are choosing compared to AWS Azure for this course?
There is no specific reason. Honestly, I have spent most of my experience into Azure. I'm an Azure architect.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Okay.
not me who have chosen this. This is an Azure data engineering course. Since I'm an architect
Okay.
into it, I was chosen for this course.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
And
it's
what
other way
are
around.
the? I understand.
Mhm.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Maybe
Yep,
in the
no
end, if
worries.
it is possible, can you give us like for all these three clouds, can you just give us the
Mhm.
differences like what will have what?
Might not be today, Rashmi. I think we are only left with 10 minutes, but
Okay,
I will definitely extend it for 15 more minutes. But
okay,
still, it won't be sufficient for me to cover Azure itself.
okay, sure, no problem. But maybe in the
Okay.
next classes, I'm
But
just
yeah,
expecting like,
definitely that will always be there. So probably once we have completed few services, but for every
mm,
service I'll be talking about alternates we have in other
mm.
clouds.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, great,
That
thank
is
you.
there. That
Yeah.
comparison you'll have. It's not that by the end of this course you will only know Azure. You might not be knowing in and outs of other services,
Mm-hmm.
architecture front and in-depth details, but you'll definitely know what alternates you have, how they are defined, and some differences.
Yeah, that will help. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Now talking about Azure, right? Your source can be anything, guys. I'm talking about any source. Okay. So the sources can be your files, okay, or your on-premise databases or data warehouses, okay, or it could be some web scraping data, or maybe data you are extracting using REST APIs, okay, or it could be some logs data. It could be some data coming in from sensors, or data coming from your mobile apps, any applications, mobile applications, or whatever it is, right? Okay, so your sources can be anything. Okay, so you might ask me, boss, why do we have to pull in all this data to one platform? For the unification reason. Okay, so you don't derive insights based on one single source. Okay, so let's say maybe this database and data warehouses will have all the data related to the operations you do internally. Okay, let us assume you are operating an e-commerce platform, Flipkart. Okay, or maybe Amazon. In Amazon you have multiple sellers and you are one among them. Let's say Career IT is a seller. in Amazon, and you sell some products and your competitors would also sell some products. Okay, maybe you want to know how their team is performing or how their sales is performing. You can definitely purchase that data, guys. Today data is gold. Okay, so you can purchase that data from Amazon. This is just an example, right? Not just Amazon, you get into stock marketing. There will be a broker system, especially in US market. You cannot directly purchase stocks. You will have to purchase any stocks via a broker. Broker could be an individual or a firm, broker firm. Say, for example, I'm selling my stocks through a broker and somebody is selling their stocks or their products from a broker, right? And I wanted to know for all the categories how my competitor is also doing. I can go purchase the data from the broker firm. Okay, and not just this, you take companies like Google, which does a huge amount of digital marketing, okay, to sell their products. So how this digital marketing data is catered, it's not just from one source, it will be from multiple files, right? And then you have REST APIs to extract some live data. Say, for example, I want to know how many clicks were made, or maybe I want to know, you know, the stock market price every second or maybe every minute. Interval could be anything. Okay, there are REST APIs which you can hit and get the data. And then logs data coming in from multiple systems. It could be your web servers, it could be anything, and lot of data coming in from sensors. It could be IoT sensors, it could be any other sensors, guys, even sensors from your car. Okay, and then we have this mobile applications, data coming in from these mobile applications, right? So might not be applicable for all the solutions you are building, but some of these sources you will have in your real-time projects. Okay, so firstly we extract the data and load them into something called as ADLS, some storage called as ADLS. Okay, ADLS Gen 2, this is a storage, ADLS Gen 2, and the modern architecture we follow is ELTL. So E extracted from these sources and then loaded to this storage, and then we do the bigger part of it, transformations. Okay, so there are multiple alternates for you to do these transformations, like Azure Data Factory, you can do the transformations, and then Azure Databricks, which is predominantly used right now to do these transformations, and then maybe I'll stick to ADF and ADB for now, and then finally you will load the data again after the transformations are done. Okay, for that load again you end up using one of these storages, either depending on what type of data you have. You can use ADLS Gen 2, and then maybe you want to use it for reporting. You can use Synapse Analytics, or maybe you wanted to do further more analysis. Okay, or maybe you want to store it in a different format, like a NoSQL format. You can use something called as Cosmos DB. Okay, and talking about this extract part, right? This extract, for extracting also we have tools, guys. Okay, either you can use PySpark. When I say PySpark, to run this PySpark again, you end up using Azure Databricks, and you also have ADF sources. Okay, using which you can extract data from your on-premise databases or on-premise data warehouses, or maybe SFTP servers, maybe where the files are stored, and you retrieve them, right? So you can use any of these alternatives. Okay, and on top of this layer you have uh, Azure Key Vault, something called as Azure Key Vault, using which you can uh, you know protect your sensitive information. Okay, say for example, maybe I'm using a bearer token for Databricks, and we don't want to expose that bearer token in our code. We will store that in a key vault and use that bearer token. And maybe I'm extracting data from database. Okay, all the connection details like username, password, and then the other JDBC connection details will not be exposing it outside. We'll be storing them in Azure Key Vault, and use the Azure Key Vault uh, keys, Azure Key Vault keys to populate that information in our code. Okay. Now this is all batch. Whatever I have talked about so far, this is all comes under batch processing. Again, talking about data processing, right? We have batch and we also have real-time streaming. Real-time streaming applications. Okay, so all these things would come under batch processing. So the basic difference between batch and real-time streaming is, batch processing or the batch processes are always scheduled. Okay, maybe you want to run something every 1 hour, or maybe you want to run something every day, or maybe you want to run something every 5 minutes. Okay, uh, anything which is scheduled is what we call as batch. Okay, the process runs once in a day, once in a week, once in a month, or maybe twice in a day, or maybe every 10 minutes, every 1 hour. It all boils down to your business requirement. Okay, but anything which is scheduled is what we call as batch. Now talking about real-time streaming applications, right? It follows altogether a different set of tools. Okay, maybe we'll be using some of the services from the above block, but typical process flow would be somehow looking like this. Okay, so we have Event Hub. Event Hub is nothing but a queuing mechanism. This is nothing but an abstraction on top of Kafka, Azure abstraction on top of Kafka. Okay, and then we have PySpark structured streaming, PySpark structured streaming. Okay, for which again you will end up using Databricks, ADB, Azure Databricks, and another alternate, you have something called as Azure Streaming Analytics. Azure Streaming Analytics is an Azure service, guys. Okay, so you stream data from this Kafka queue, then probably you write it to a storage. Storage can be your ADLS Gen 2 again, and most of the cases we end up using Cosmos DB because this is most optimized for write operations. Okay, so basically talking about real-time streaming applications, right? So anything you get insights in near real time, 1 minute, 2 minute. Okay, so the best example could be Twitter trending. Okay, if you open Twitter, I don't know how many of you have Twitter accounts, but if you have open Twitter and then look for trending, you will see some hashtags which are trending. That is an example for real-time streaming applications. Okay, and I'm not sure what alternate you have in US, but in India these days, whenever you are speeding, right, some cars are coming up with connected apps. Okay, so they're directly sending a notification saying that boss, you are speeding. Okay, and if you take Google Map, you get updates on accidents. So for example, you're driving in a particular route, and when there is an accident, you will get notified about the same, and you will also see the diversion or the best route you can take based on the ETA. Okay, these are all some applications of real-time streaming. It follows a different architecture. Okay, so some projects will follow the batch architecture, some projects will follow the real-time architecture, real-time streaming architecture. In some projects you will see a mix of both. Okay, we call that as a lambda architecture. Okay, again, when I say lambda architecture, say for example, I as an organization follow batch processing for a couple of projects and real-time streaming for a couple of projects, I'll not be calling my projects follow lambda architecture. So you should be having both batch and real-time streaming for the same project. That is when you can say that particular project is following lambda architecture. Okay, so now in our course you'll be learning about all these services, guys, whatever I'm showing on my screen. So you'll get to learn ADLS Gen 2. When I say ADLS Gen 2, you'll get to know everything, what exactly is this blob structure, what is this ADLS Gen 2, and then different tiers you have, and then how it is providing the redundancy so that you can rely on it, and how you can archive things, how you can retrieve them. Okay, how you can define life cycle policies, right? So everything you'll get to know. when we are talking about ADLS, and then you'll get to understand what a medallion architecture is, the modern architecture, right? And then you'll get to know what ADF is, what is a pipeline, what is a trigger, what is an activity, how do you do copy activities, which is nothing but extracting data, right? And then how do you do transformations using data factory, and then how do you push your data back to storage, and then we'll talk about Azure Databricks. Okay, so how do you deal with the different types of files, how do you read data from a database, right? And different optimization techniques we follow. You'll get to understand PySpark. Okay, and I'll be deep diving into Synapse as well. So what is this serverless pools, how Synapse architecture is different from ADB, Databricks, right? Whether I should be choosing only Synapse or whether I should be choosing the combination of both. If I'm choosing combination, what would be the right set for the use case, right? All these things you'll get a solid understanding, guys. Okay, so I'll not be emphasizing much on real-time streaming, just like I did for batch. Batch, I'll be deep diving. Okay, real-time streaming, you'll get to understand the architecture. I'll be taking a couple of use cases. One is change data capture use case, and one is, the actual real-time streaming applications. Maybe I'll be using some REST APIs to fetch data and then derive some insights out of it. Okay, but you will get to understand how this integration works. Why do we need a queuing mechanism here like Event Hub? So that is also fine. Even though we are using Event Hub, how the streaming processes works, where and how you differentiate this batch and streaming, right? So different things. And there are a lot of tools, right? uh, at some point in time you'll get confused for sure. Boss, we are able to do transformations in data factory, we are also able to do transformations in Databricks, and we are also able to do transformations using just Python. Okay, so what service to choose? What exactly are the differences? What parameters would let me choose the service which I need to use? All these questions would be answered by the end of this course, guys. Okay, and again, I'm not gonna teach you uh, a tool by tool, service by service, where I would pick ADF or ADB and then we'll talk about all the features of ADF. No, we will pick a data engineering applications. There are some standard data engineering applications, guys, ETL applications, ELTL, or you call it batch. When it comes to real-time streaming, you have some standard projects like CDC, right? I'll be taking up those examples. Okay, and then I will make you understand how these services can be collaborated to build those use cases. Okay, so let me take a pause. Like I said, for every service I have mentioned on my screen, you have an alternative in every other cloud. Okay, so for example, Event Hub, right? In Amazon AWS, you call that as Kinesis, Amazon AWS Kinesis, right? And in GCP, you call it as a PubSub. Okay, so likewise, you have alternates for everything. Okay, just give me a second, guys. Yeah, so in GCP, we have PubSub for the same. Okay, but whatever you are seeing on my screen, you will do everything by the end of this course. Okay, get the real picture or a real flavor of what data engineering projects would look like. Now, you know, this is what typically a data engineer does. And once we have extracted data, transformed it, when there are multiple names for transformations, people call it as massaging your data or wrangling your data. Okay, once we have done all those things, then finally we will be bringing all the data into a format where either your data analyst or data scientist can consume it from. Okay, so data scientist wouldn't get involved into any of these activities, whatever you're seeing on my screen. Probably once I have data in a consumable format. So for example, earlier I was talking about stock market data, right? Say for example, your internal transactions are there in database, and then external transactions you bought it in a file, and then you are using some Google APIs to get some data from online or from Google. Okay, and then you have some data coming in from your mobile applications. For data scientists to use this data, he cannot just use the data from one source. So it is the data engineer who would model the data, club all these sources, do all the wrangling that is needed or transformations that are needed, and then make data or present data in a consumable format. Okay, from where data scientist can pick and run his ML algorithms. Okay, so again, talking about data science, it's a different beast altogether. You have predictive analytics, you have cognitive analytics, you have different types of analytics. He can do whatever he wants. Sometimes the requirement for a data engineer comes from data scientist. Okay, saying ki boss, I want data from all these sources, and this is how my data should look like so that I can run my algorithms. Okay, so sometimes the requirement for data engineer comes from data scientist. And so for example, I have created, as a data engineer, I have created all the data in a consumable format, but maybe I want to show that data to the higher management. They'll not be able to understand anything. This data has to be converted to a beautiful visuals. That is where the data analyst would come into a picture. That is where data analyst would come into the picture, where he would convert all this data into beautiful visuals. Okay, where the higher management or the business folks can view the data or the insights in different dimensions. Okay, so they slice it, they roll up, they roll down. There are reporting tools which would support all these features, like Power BI or whatever it is. So whatever the data that is finally presented in the presentation layer, or the presentation layer is nothing but the storage account. Again, this is all the terminology which you'll get acquainted with. Okay, but once the data is there in the final storage layer, your data scientists and the data analyst would start consuming it from there, and they build their applications. Okay, so this is what a data engineer does in his day-to-day routine, guys. Now let me take a pause. We will have to stop here, and the stage is now open for your questions.
Hello.
Yeah, Raju.
Yeah, yeah, Suresh. Actually, see, I am very new to this Azure cloud. I never used
Mhm,
this Azure, and I even know the console of the Azure also, to be frank.
mhm.
Okay, then at what time you are said like you are explaining all these services by using real world examples.
Mhm.
So at that time you can explain each and everything. For example, in Azure Databricks, there are so many use cases, are so many
Yes.
options. You can explain that options, or you can explain the option regarding that scenario only.
So basically, I'll tell you what. Okay. So this is a good question, guys. This can be applicable for every one of you. I understand every one of you are new to Azure. Okay. So talking about Azure as a cloud platform, right? It has hundreds of services to offer, and tens of services to in data field. Okay, or data engineering side. Okay. Now, let's say I have ADF. Okay, so this is how you'll get introduced to the ADF portal, right? Azure portal, right? So you'll create your account. I'll be showing all the steps that are needed, how you can create it, right? And then a few things I'll be covering theoretically, few things. When I say theoretically, again, talking about Azure, you have two sides of it. One is administration side and second one is development side. Okay. Uh, let's say you are a data engineer. Now you don't go and create a service. Okay, So basically there will be administrator who would be creating a service and he will be giving you the access. Just like you are working on your on-premise, you don't install the servers, right? Servers are installed and maintained by somebody else. You use those servers to deploy your applications, and you don't develop CI/CD pipelines. All you'll have to do is just push your code to the Git, okay? And the CI/CD pipelines built by DevOps engineer in the back end would take care of the deployment. Okay, so that is how it works here as well. We have different roles, and few roles which you will not be directly involved into will be covered theoretically so that you'll have some understanding on it. But all the activities which you do, now talking about the different options, I'll not be able to walk you through all the options any data service has to offer. Okay, but I'll be covering most frequently used. If you ask me, I haven't explored all the options. Okay, as in when a requirement comes, we go and what we go and explore, what options do we have. Okay, so for example, you take any service, you have hundreds of options which are not really needed, at least for our case. But let's say I'm talking about Databricks. So I'll be showing you how to create a notebook, how to create a Databricks cluster. I'll be explaining, what different types of clusters we have and how the processing happens in the back end, how you can write Python code there, how you can write SQL code there, how you can write PySpark code there, how you can run commands, different Databricks utilities. I'll be covering all the important features right from the basics. Okay, I'll show you what a Unity catalog is. Okay, I know these terms could be little alien to you if you have not done some research before attending this session. I assume none of you knows about any of what I'm talking. Okay, while I'm teaching, I'll be starting right from the basics. But if you expect I'll be covering all the options comprehensively, then that is a wrong expectation, guys, because I'll be very frank, because at the end of this course, neither of us want to get disappointed because we are investing so much of time here, right? You take Java, Java is an ocean. You take Python, Python is an ocean. Okay, when you learn Python, you don't learn everything in Python. You learn the modules, packages, whatever you need for your development. This is an analogy I'm creating, Raju, just for your understanding. For example, you want to work in data science, you learn NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, Matplotlib, only these modules. You have a different frameworks. If you want to get into web development, you learn Django and Flask. Same thing here. So we will be covering the most used and the frequently used features of every service.
Okay, 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 understand. And
Okay.
another thing is, do we have any real-time projects for practice?
So again, let me clarify this also. Most of the people asks for real-time projects. If any institute, if any trainer promises you real-time projects, it's a false promise. Nobody can get real-time data, guys. You are also working for an organization, right? Every one of you. I mean, at least some of you. Most of the others are freshers. Can you get some 1 GB or 2 GB of data from your system? You can't even download them. Okay, so real-time data will not get. We will only simulate real-time use cases. Say for example, there is a CDC use case which we do. So here what we'll do is we will take some 20 MB or 10 MB data, whatever is available online, right? And then try to replicate the solution rather than the data. So you talk about solutions. Yes, we'll do real-time use cases. We will replicate real-time scenarios, but real-time data, real-time exposure, a big no.
Okay,
Okay, I'm being very frank.
yeah.
These are some good questions, guys. Really good questions, because this would help us from getting into some wrong expectations.
Suresh,
Okay, but real, yeah.
sorry. Yeah, one question. So
Mhm,
you said you'll be going with Azure only, right? So
mhm,
if I get to know throughout the course about Azure, will I be
mhm.
able to confident to work with AWS?
Absolutely. Say, for example, you were mentioning that your project is having AWS Databricks, right?
Yes. It is not
By
having
the
yet. We were trying to migrate it to AWS Databricks.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure by the end of May you should be very comfortable working on AWS Databricks.
Okay. Okay. And also one more question. So somewhere you're talking about the PySpark, right?
Mhm,
So some of my other teams already started using AWS Databricks. So
mhm,
they are QA analysts too. And
mhm,
they started using this. And I heard from them they were writing the scripts in the Python and Scala.
mhm,
So will I be so you're completely talking about development that side, right? If I'm
mhm,
right. Is that
mhm.
correct? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So will I be able to be confident enough um to be a QA as being a QA? Will I be able
Mhm.
to be confident enough to work for AWS Databricks by writing the Python scripts or
So,
Scala, whatever? Will I be able to know the architecture at least the basic thing? Is it the basic thing for everyone, right?
mhm. Now, I'll clarify your question. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is another good question. In fact, this is one point which I missed. Okay. So,
Okay.
ideally, when
Mm-hmm.
you ask me what are the prerequisites to learn a data engineering course, I would just close my eyes and tell you, go learn SQL, Python, and then come back.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so these are the prerequisites for any data engineering course, guys. Like I said, I was talking about how I take data engineer interviews, right? See, forget about how I take, but any proper data engineer would take data engineering interviews in that sense only. Okay, so for example, you are attending a Azure data engineer interview. Okay, so 70% of your interview would be about the previous projects you have worked, how you have built solutions, what problems you have faced, what optimizations you have done. Okay, and rest of the 30%, they would be checking on uh, the the cloud service they are looking for. So for example, I'll be talking about, so for example, I'm taking an interview in Azure. I'll be asking questions on Data Factory, related to Data Factory, Synapse, Cosmos. Okay, depending on your experience. Okay, so the next question of yours should be, will you be teaching SQL and Python? Python, no. SQL, yes. Okay, so I would highly recommend you to learn at least basics of Python by your own. By the time we start PySpark, we will definitely have 2 months time. Okay, and if you ask me, boss, is without knowing Python, will I be able to start my course? Definitely yes. You'll be able to understand everything I'm teaching, but um, you'll not be able to do it on your own, because PySpark is a different framework where we use Python syntaxes and some concepts in Python for automation. Okay, but you know, uh, if you know Python well, at least the basic Python well, you might ask me, boss, what covers what does a basic Python needed, what basic Python is needed to understand this course? I would say the basic data types, understanding, good understanding on loops, conditions, right? And then control statements like break, continue, then good understanding on collections. When I say collections, I would expect lists, dictionaries, set, and tuple. Okay, and I think maybe these things will do, which would hardly take a couple of weeks. But like I said, even without knowing these things, you will be able to understand my course. 70% of the course, 70% of the PySpark I'm teaching, because ADF doesn't need Python, ADF doesn't need SQL, right? Synapse needs SQL, and when I'm teaching PySpark, Python is needed. How much extent? Maybe 30%. Okay, so
Is
to
there a
draw a complete set,
condition that PySpark can be used only by developers? Is there something like that?
there is, I don't understand the difference between developer or QA, Rashmi,
It's the same
especially in ETL field.
process. It's just the
It's the same
technology that,
process. At the
okay,
end of the day,
okay.
you,
That's
you
what
to
I'm
write
trying to
PySpark, I to
understand.
run PySpark.
Okay. Now I get
Okay,
it. Okay. Mm-hmm.
just that we do transformations and you test the transformations we have done.
Okay.
As simple as that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Yeah.
questions, guys?
Hey, hi Suresh. This is Pawan.
Hi, Pawan.
Basically, I also do the same similar kind of a data engineering stuff.
but mostly I was working on a AWS side. So just
Hmm.
wanted to do on the Azure data engineering side. But the
Hmm.
course, right? Except Azure Data Factory, I don't see any other services over there. So are we going to concentrate only on the SQL part over here? And we don't have any other services which are going to cover, right? Uh, from the Azure
No,
side,
we will be
which I've seen
covering
from the
Databricks, we'll be covering Synapse Analytics.
Databricks is not a Azure service, right? So Databricks is can be in a AWS
Okay.
or it can be a
It's a
outside
PaaS.
of.
It's a PaaS,
Yeah,
platform as a
it's
service.
nothing to do with that. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not part of Azure.
Yes. So I'll be covering Event Hub and Streaming Analytics as well.
Okay, so
Okay.
basically, might be like it might help for everyone. So, but I'm just coming because with the same background, my uh,
No,
thought
I
process, like
mean,
I'm from big data engineer and Hadoop, Spark, PySpark,
mhm,
Scala, like
mhm.
everything I've been working from last 10, 12 years. So I have total 16 years of experience, but mainly my job, there are few openings on the Azure side. So I just want to switch from AWS to Azure. So that is my more intention to
I
actually
don't
join
recommend
this
this
demo.
course for you, Pawan.
Yeah, but what the problem I'm facing is coming with the AWS, right? So they come up with Azure as well. So they come up with
Mhm.
the do you like there are some openings with the Azure and they ask for the data factory. I thought like at least to have this data factory to be available as part of hands-on so that I can tackle multiple kind of a scenarios. So there right now
Mhm.
there are no not like a one particular cloud they are asking. So they are like a mix and matches. uh,
Yes.
I'm not very sure like where I can get that data factory knowledge. I can go through the links from the YouTube, but I'm not well enough that I'll get a more information.
I
So
understand. There
I'm
is
trying to
always a difference between live training and recorded sessions.
correct. Yeah. So
So,
what is the
honestly
duration?
speaking,
Can I get the maybe I can
hmm,
talk you offline, but I'm interested on the data respect to all of them. I think I'm well enough and I've been working from long time that remaining things.
yeah. So basically, there is a reason why I don't recommend this course to you because most of the other folks
Mhm.
are either coming from ETL background or fresher, or I would consider rest everyone as freshers to this course. Okay. So for
Correct.
you,
Yeah, that's
right,
what I see.
what are the
Mm.
solutions I'm going to talk about? What are the pipelines I'm going to build during this course? What are the, uh, you know, the processes I'm going to teach, the nomenclature I'm going to teach, everything will be repetitive for you. So for
Yeah.
example, I'll be spending close to 20 hours on Databricks because Databricks is vast. When I say Databricks, maybe the
Okay.
tool I'm going to use is Databricks, but I'll be covering SQL because most of the people are freshers. They don't have exposure to SQL. SQL is very important. You must be knowing
Mm.
it, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk about PySpark. We will start with the basics like creating a
Mhm.
data frame and then all the
Yeah,
data frame
DBT.
operations, right?
Yeah.
And then to some extent RDDs I'll not be stressing a lot because it's almost a gone technology.
Yeah. As long as data
Okay,
frame is there, we don't require RTL. Yeah.
exactly. So I'll be talking about data frames most of the time, but they will get to understand what RDD as well. Okay, but not in depth. Now I'm gonna cover Unity
Okay.
catalog. I'm gonna cover different types of clusters we have, the cluster connections, Spark JDBC, right? So
No,
all these
more
things
curious on
itself will
data
take a
factory
good amount
side.
of time. Yeah. So talking
Okay.
about Data Factory, I'll be taking couple of weeks. Okay. So the number of hours
Okay.
would come to be around maybe 12 to 14 hours on Data Factory, where I'm going to talk about, what Data Factory is, how to create the transformations using data flow, copy activities, how you can build activities and link them to pipelines,
And
and how you can create those
will we
triggers.
be yeah, yeah. So we'll be using a that 1 month trial period like during that time. Like we have to take a
Yes.
1 month
So
Azure subscription and then do it.
correct. Azure subscription 1 month is the trial period what you get, and
Mhm.
for the second month onwards, you'll have to. pay. So basically, I design my course in such a way that I will be teaching Data Factory first. Sorry, Databricks first. So during Data Factory, I
Okay.
would request everyone not to take subscription because you have Databricks Community Edition. So that
Okay.
70 to 80% of what I teach can be done in Community Edition for free of cost, except for few features like Unity Catalog, Databricks Workflows, DB Utils, Databricks Utils, SQL Warehouses. These are the few features which are which are being missed in Community Edition. So probably once they have created, our folks have created the Azure account and activated their trial, then probably they can practice those
Mhm.
features. And rest all the features or rest all the services I'll be covering in a month. Okay, so that 1 month would be good enough for them to practice in Azure.
Okay,
And to extend
the
your
data flow
yes,
activities and all won't be available in Databricks, right?
Community Edition, no.
Oh, okay. So that you will be using Azure.
Yes.
Okay.
Say for example, I want to talk about job compute. You don't have job compute concept in Community Edition. You cannot create it
Mhm.
because they're offering it for free of cost, right?
Yeah.
So most of the premium features were disabled. So for example, time travel in Delta, you cannot do that in Community Edition.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
you know, that's the reason I was telling, maybe the course that would excite you would be for 2 to 3 weeks maximum. The other part of this course is repetitive for you. Okay, but I'll be more than happy to have you in this session
Okay.
because at least since you have that knowledge, you will be the first one to appreciate this course. So I
Yes.
would definitely want you to be in my course, but talking about the value addition to you, um, I'm not sure because most of the time you feel whatever I'm teaching would be repetitive.
Yeah, that should be uh, understandable. Got it. Because you are not teaching for me, right? It's a group of people. Yeah, got
Yes.
it. But I'm just looking for what I can get it from here. Yeah. Thanks.
Pavan, probably what you can do is you can talk to the folks who have given you this link and
Mm-hmm.
ask them to schedule a one-on-one with me.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Suresh, what is the timings of the classes?
All the administrative related questions can be taken up by whoever have given you this link for demo, guys. I'm not sure
Oh,
who
okay,
is your spot, your point of contact. They will be
okay,
talking about the course timings, course fee, and other administrative aspects of this course. Anything related to the
okay,
course, content, your job, roles, you can talk now.
okay. And
You
so,
can ask me.
Suresh, another doubt is, okay, while explaining something like, for example, Azure Data Factory, uh,
Mhm.
um, are you telling like these some interview basic questions while explaining the topics or after this course?
Okay, so this is another good question. So a lot of questions that are coming up today are really informative, guys. Okay, so interview expectations. Talking about interview expectations, right? I'll be covering three aspects of interviews. One thing is your real-time project experience. Okay, so probably once I'm gonna connect all the dots, like how these services will be working together, right? You will have to articulate some story about your projects because
Okay,
any data engineering interviews would start with a project, and most of the questions will be from your project. Okay, and once that is done, then probably they move into the generic questions. So some generic questions including questions on optimizations, and then questions on let's say a data factory like Raju picked up. Questions would be on different types of activities that were there, or creating this integration runtimes, right, or creating this linked services. Okay, so most of the questions will be based on how, not what. Like typical other interviews, what is X, what is Y, what is Z, that kind of questions you don't get in data engineering. Okay, so how did you optimize your solution, or what are the problems you have faced, especially with the data handling with huge data? Okay, when I say huge, it might not be always in terms of size, but sometimes it's in terms of types as well. Okay, so for example, you're handling an XML files with a complex model or a complex schema. How did you handle it, right? Or maybe you are working on a real-time streaming application. What is your architecture? Why do we need a event hub there? How did you use event hub, right? What window you have defined? How did you stream your data? These are the type of questions which you get. Okay, so every single session I'm teaching can expect in your interviews.
Okay.
Okay, but I'll be
And
definitely stressing on the important topics whenever I was teaching.
okay. And thing is of basically who are taking this course, most probably I think they have not real time experience in Azure data engineering. So how we can manage them? Because I am also I don't have a real time experience in Azure data engineering.
That's what I'm telling you. Say, for example, whatever the solutions I'm covering, right? That's the reason I'm not teaching service by service independently. Okay,
Okay.
so by the end of this course, you will be able to connect all the dots. What services can be used for what things, right? And what are the best suited use cases? And I'll be explaining my projects, what I have done. Okay, or
Okay.
this 10 months of time, right? Sorry, 10 years of experience, right? So what projects I have done, especially on Azure. Okay, and Azure I have close to 5 from 2018. I'm working on Azure, so it's been 6 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be explaining all the projects I have worked on, how these dots are connected, using which you will have to articulate a story.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so basically,
Okay.
once you got to understand these services, right, you try to go and talk to the folks who are working in your organization on data, what they are doing, how they are doing, and you also see you must be working on some project right now. If you have to replace that with big data ecosystem, how you can do it? Okay,
Okay.
so these
Okay.
kind of research, lot of reading, and lots of reading. Only that can get your interviews cleared. There are
Yeah.
beautiful blogs in Medium. There are some beautiful blogs in towards data science, right? I'll be telling you my favorite blogs as well. Even I read a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Thanks. Thanks, Suresh, for all these inputs.
No worries, Raju. So I see people leaving. Probably you are free to leave, guys, but please leave a feedback in the chat window on how you felt about this demo, whether it is insightful or not.
Suresh, one last question. I'm sorry. I have too
No
many
worries.
questions today.
You can ask
So
hundreds of questions. I'm patient enough to answer your questions. Don't worry.
great, great. Thank you. So will I be able to complete any certifications and how much value does that add?
Unfortunately, certifications these days doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of value like people project. The only problem is you have a lot of dumps available.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
clearing a certification even without any knowledge, now you can clear an interview. I can give you a trick.
Okay.
Certification.
Okay.
Okay, so at least my personal thing, right? If you really prepare for the certification genuinely and then write a certification, maybe on resume it might not add a lot of value, but
Mm-hmm.
personally you'll have a lot of learning. Say, for example,
Okay.
what I cover in this 2 months could be only 60 to 70% of the total curriculum, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Got
but
it.
when you actually prepare for the certification, you will be covering 100%.
Right.
Okay, so definitely when you prepare for a certification and write the exam genuinely,
Mm.
it will definitely help you in terms of knowledge. But the paper value, I don't care whether you are certified or not, because I pretty well know half an hour preparation can get you a certification.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
yeah. But there are some certifications which have value, guys. So, for example, Databricks certification. uh, it certifies your PySpark skills. That is a good certification value add, because you will not get dumps. Okay, so there are some certifications which might not certify you as a data engineer, but at least on services it will certify you. So those I would definitely recommend. I'll tell you what you can take, which would add value on paper.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm waiting to hear from you, your feedback. I request everyone to leave that before you, I mean, give me a feedback message in chat window, or either you can unmute yourself and give me the feedback before you leave.
Yeah, Acha, I feel like this section is very informative and interactive. Yeah, I think I learned new things in this demo class. Hope I will learn very much in this course.
Definitely, Raju. That's my assurance. You are in a good hands. Don't worry.
Mm. Yeah, because today actually my what I'm thinking is data engineering is all about ETL. That thing. To be frank, I don't know before.
Mhm.
After then I done a research by my side. Then I will get to know all these things. Before that, I won't think is extracting data and injection data to any database. That's it. But
There are few
today I
projects,
learned.
unfortunately, Raju. There are few
Hmm.
projects which is exactly doing what you are mentioning. I take a
Okay.
lot of interviews. I'll tell you, Indian market, right? To fill one position or two positions, data engineer positions, I usually take 50 to 60 interviews.
Okay.
Okay. So I know why I'm rejecting. So definitely I'll make sure you will not get rejected, at least.
Okay. 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 Definitely. Definitely. Thanks for that. And the thing is, Suresh, I have last small doubt. Uh,
Mhm,
in AWS or in AWS, we have regions like availability zones and
mhm.
policies like authorization, nothing but giving permission to that user. Is who is who is accessible to that some services.
Even in
And
Azure also you have, we call it as, uh, access management. You have Azure Active Directory, you have RBAC controls, role-based access controls. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So there are a lot of things. IAM, we call that as IAM, access management.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you have that in every single clouds. Okay. So like I said, this is something which is not managed by an engineer, but by an administrator. So I was
Oh,
mentioning about a few topics which will be theoretical but not practical, right? This comes under that.
oh no,
I'll be
okay, serious.
explaining you. Yeah, I'll be
Hmm.
explaining you what RBAC
Because
controls are,
hmm,
what a service principal is, how are you getting authenticated, what a resource group is, subscription is. Entire hierarchy you'll
okay.
get to know. Don't worry.
Okay, because why I'm just asking this question is Suresh. For example, we are using SDKs. For example, we are using Azure SDKs. We want to get
Mhm,
the list of all clusters created by Azure Databricks from Azure.
mhm, mhm.
So at that time, if you click, if you write some SDKs using Azure SDK, we are writing some code in the Python. We are getting definitely permission issue because we don't have permission that at that time.
I know, I know. So basically, they must have given a lesser access, so you are not
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
yeah.
view the clusters. I
Yes, yes,
mean,
yes.
even easier method would be to use a REST API. You have REST APIs for
Yeah, yes, yes.
job API. There are job APIs, cluster APIs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you would need a higher permission.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Likewise, in for example, I ask some people who are working in data engineering. They are like, so if we want to, for example, we have some SQL database.
Mhm,
We want to
mhm,
inject data from SQL to Azure Blob. At that time, we
mhm,
need to write some SDKs, right? Code.
mhm.
So maybe that time they need permissions to put the data into Blob. Maybe that may be a case.
Those permissions you will always have. Again, say for
Mm.
example, I'm working in a project, you are working in a different project, right? And we
Mm.
have two containers created in the same storage account.
Okay.
Okay. So you shouldn't be having right access to my container. I shouldn't be having right access to your container, correct?
Okay, okay.
Okay, so there are a lot of things how you can actually manage these things. Like I said, there will be at least a couple of theoretical sessions on these things. Don't worry about it.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks. And sorry, you've mentioned that containers, right? And
Mhm,
last one, seriously, what is the
mhm.
role
No
of
worries.
Docker and Terraform, Kubernetes in data engineering, data engineering
So
field?
Terraform, I would say, in most of the times we used to deploy services. Say, for example, in
Yeah,
our
yeah.
course, I'll be showing you how you can deploy
Mm-hmm.
services manually, how you can create a
Mm-hmm.
Databricks service, how you can create a data factory service, ADLS, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you can actually deploy all these services using Terraform modules.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, I know. Yeah.
Okay, so these
Okay.
days people are moving towards Terraform for multiple reasons because
Mm-hmm.
once you have created the template, you can make it a parameterized template. So, for example, you want to create another
Understand. Yeah, yeah.
Databricks instance, you'll just pass parameters.
Okay, we can use the same template and we can run the
Yes,
we can apply the Terraform plan.
correct. That will make your life easy. And
Yes.
Kubernetes and
Mm-hmm.
Jenkins is all about deployment, backend, your
Mm-hmm.
Terraform deployment. This code needs to be deployed, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, why I'm asking this question is we done for AWS, but
Mhm.
I want to know it is applicable for Azure also. That's right.
Nah, it is applicable for Azure as well. In fact, all our services in the current organization are deployed using Terraform. In fact, I have
Oh,
used Terraform for GCP as well in my previous organization, where
mm-hmm.
you cannot create a table or manipulate a table using BigQuery UI. You'll have to do that using Terraform only. All you can do using
Okay,
UI is just running queries.
okay,
Okay.
okay, okay. Thanks, Suresh.
So, Rohan, for some reasons I'm not able to speak over mic. I have a question for you. Will you at least touch basic Python basics? Unfortunately, no, Rohan. Okay, because SQL and PySpark itself will take a lot of time. Like I said, if I have to cover Python basics and everything right, this will become a master's program and will go for a semester long. Okay, so but I'll be guiding you in terms of what you need to learn, um, you know, and what will really help you in, I mean, parallelly. Sirisha, how to start a career in data engineering field as a fresher? I think I have answered this question. Um, you know, Everybody here are freshers at this point in time, except for a couple of folks. Okay, so I'll be treating everyone as a fresher, and then we'll be teaching. I'll not be starting from 100. It will be started from one.
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
So my doubt is, if I want to shift my career from non-IT to IT, if I choose this data engineering, how can I
Mhm.
be able to get into it if you are taking an interview as a fresher for a fresher
Where are
post?
you located? Where are you located? US or India?
India.
Okay. So if I'm taking interview for a fresher, so
Yeah, what you
here
are looking
there
for?
are I'll talk about Indian market, Sirisha. So Indian market is a different ball game compared to US market, right? So when you talk about a fresher, right?
Yeah,
Generally expectations wouldn't be for a particular technology. Okay, they wanted you to be flexible, right?
oh,
But learning data engineering will definitely help you to get a job. But will you be working on a data engineering projects? I'm not sure. Again, it depends on company to company. So, for example, companies like TCS, Infosys, Techem, they'll be recruiting you as a fresher, and wherever the vacancy is available or positions are available, they'll put you into those projects. But they'll make sure they are providing you sufficient training for the same. But if you really want to join as a data engineer, work as a data engineer, I would highly recommend you to go for startups. startups who are specifically working on data engineering. Okay, so my previous organization was a startup. Okay, so when we recruited freshers, we recruit them as interns. Okay, again, every company will have their own strategy, but our strategy, we recruit them as interns. We put them into projects as a non-billable resource. Okay, meaning you are learning, but you are not earning anything. I mean, you are not
Yeah.
earning anything from the client, but we will pay you for learning.
Yeah.
Okay, and evaluate your performance, how you are doing, and then we'll convert you to a full-time employee. Okay, so I would say 70% of the startups are following a similar culture when it comes to fresher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even though they are recruiting them as a full-time, first 6 months would be a kind of testing period.
Mm.
Okay, they'll evaluate you on how you're performing, unlike the big MNCs. Big MNCs, they will, because big MNCs, they'll hire people and assign projects. Okay, and the startups and mid-level companies, when I say mid-level companies, headcount under 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are tens of companies which would actually hire you for the requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rohan, to answer your question, I would say if you compare all the services, it would be less than 15%, 1 5.
Uh, so by the end of this course, can I able
Mhm.
to project all my knowledge in a single project in my resume so that uh, it will add on something?
Answer is yes, definitely yes.
Okay. Actually, we are, as you said before, it won't be a real-time project, but we will be using every aspect what we study here.
Honestly, nobody would expect a real-time project from you because you are starting as a fresher.
Yeah.
Okay, and people who are having experiences, they'll have to articulate with this knowledge, blending it with a project, some real-world project.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? And thank you guys. Thank you so much for the feedback and giving us this opportunity for the demo. Okay.
Only
So
course.
once we start our course, we'll meet you in the first session.
Suresh
Thank you.
Prasad here.
Yeah, Prasad.
What's the minimum experience required to get the job for an experienced persons on this Azure data engineering? So how the market
Mm,
right now?
Indian market or US market?
Indian.
There is no minimum experience as such, Prasad. So generally, what we do is we will have positions, open positions at multiple experience ranges, right? So expectations for these ranges would differ. So for example, you have less than 5 years of experience, the better chances you'll have. I'm talking about Indian market. Whatever the stats I'm talking, this is relevant to Indian market because US market is a different ball game. Okay. So more than 5 years of experience, maybe 7 years, 8 years, people would expect you in a senior data engineer role, where your interview will be focused on little advanced concepts. Okay. Like I said, you will definitely get some light on those topics, but you'll have to put in some additional efforts too. Let's say you're having 11-year, 12-year experience and you want to apply for an architect role, uh, it's going to take good amount of time from you. Just this 2 months of course wouldn't be sufficient. You'll have to put in a lot more effort, and for these kind of roles, right, I'll be giving a proper guidance, like what you should do next and what you should be completing before you start attending the interviews. If it is a US market, it's a different ball game. It doesn't have, I mean, experience doesn't play much role there.
Yeah. Actually, in my case, I have more than 10 years of experience, but right now I'm
Mhm.
working as a RPA lead consultant, RPA robotic process automation
I
technology.
know. Robotic process automation. Yeah.
I have 7 years experience in RPA, but before that, I'm from ETL background, Informatica Power Center. I have experience. So the
Got it.
ETL knowledge I have and the database knowledge I have, but since last 5 6 years I'm into this RPA, so I'm new to this in data engineering role. So that's why I'm asking this question. Like,
No, no, I
yeah,
mean, definitely the expectation. See, like I said, right, again, startups are a great opportunity for folks like us. Okay, or what I feel,
okay, okay,
because startups may,
okay,
even with 6 7 year experience, you can become an architect if you have proper knowledge. And even with 12 years of
mm,
experience, you can join as a senior data engineer. Your package also varies though, according to your role.
mm,
Okay, but yes, definitely there are good opportunities. Like I said, I'll be very frank and open, Prasad, because at the end of the day, I don't want anyone to get disappointed, right? So
yeah, yeah,
definitely my course wouldn't be sufficient for you. It will give you a kickstart though, not kickstart, head start, I would say. Okay. But after completing this course, I would highly recommend you to take the certification exams genuinely.
okay,
Okay. And the people expect you to contribute on, designing the cloud architecture as well. Okay.
okay,
Say, for example, how do you manage these private endpoints and other things? Like I said, it all depends on company to company. Let's say you have given interviews for 10 companies, at least there will be 1 or 2 companies which would definitely prefer you with whatever knowledge you have.
okay,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that's how it goes. If not 2 companies, at least 1 company. But we should make sure that, we are in a position to crack that 1 company.
right,
Okay. Because we are putting in a lot of effort
understood.
for what, just spending, uh, ta- I mean, 40, 50 hours of time into training and then another 50 to 100 hours of time into practicing. Not getting a job is not ideal situation, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So when we
So
invest so much
if it
amount of
is
time
a
to become
US market, if it is US market, then it doesn't matter whatever the experience we have, whatever the technologies
my
we
course
have
will be
worked
more than
on,
enough. My course will be
enough to
more
get
than
it.
enough.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Paresh.
cool. Thank you. Thank you all.